Frank Scurlock with us tonight. It's a great joy to have you on the air, Frank Scurlock. His bona fides, if you like to say, are out there and they're dimensionally acceptable. He is not only part of a well-known family business in the inflatable houses and things that children played in for all those time periods, still do. But he is also a great philanthropist and a man who understands what business is and how it needs to work. Frank Scurlock, it's a great pleasure to have you on the air with us tonight.
Thank you very much. Greetings from Manhattan.
Greetings to you. Frank, first and foremost, New Orleans was one of the hot spots in America. I've got to ask you, sir, what were your concerns and have the concerns been met in the city of New Orleans?
You know, it was real tragic, and it just kind of by fate that this is actually the first year that I personally did not attend the Mardi Gras parade. So I was fortunate that I kind of myself was protected. I saw some opportunity coming up in the business environment, and the reason if I get knocked off, I can assure you one thing: it's not that I don't want to talk. It's because my phone's blowing up because we're doing so much in business 24 hours a day right now. I mean, it sounds funny, but that's what's happening. Exactly. So I can't stop people from calling you. You're on my primary phone. But, you know, New Orleans is a great example. I'm on the road a lot. Just to give you an idea, in the past 21 days, I've been in Denver, New Orleans, Orlando, D.C., and I'm in Manhattan to talk about, and off to, believe it or not, Frankfurt. And then we're actually going into one of the ground zeros, Hong Kong, and end up in China for some things we're working on. But there's so much opportunity out there, and really, it's how it resonates in your mind. Are you part of the solution? Are you part of the problem? And exactly. I don't mean to boast, but tonight I actually bought 8 cars. I bought 8 American-made Jeeps. Okay?
There you go.
And I'm rewarding some family members because we hit some home runs and milestones. I'm rewarding some staff that we hit some milestones with. And there's no better time from ownership to let their employees and their friends and family know that they're cared for, right? Yeah. And that's what, I mean, quite frankly, small business is about. And I have some concerns economically from a large scale from, let's say, the administration and Congress and Senate when I was in D.C. extensively all last week. And, I mean, my hotel, where we had a conference to bring scientists together to hopefully solve the coronavirus, we couldn't rent a conference room to meet at. So we ended up renting the presidential suite at the Trump Hotel because they had a conference table in the room.
So, but let me ask you, Frank, let me ask you that here. Did your business experience any of the difficulties that others are speaking about?
And you know, I had my lead sales manager on the phone about an hour ago, actually, when I was buying the car, because I asked him, what color car do you want? and he told me they're getting so many requests. Now, ironically, what's really moving is our used department, where, so the history of me is real simple. I dropped out of kindergarten, so we got the education out. My father, about that same time, invented the bouncy castle, and I saw what was happening. It happened in New Orleans, and he was experimenting with practical uses of air, like making domes for tennis courts, swimming pools and stuff, and our employees would walk on them. So he made a structure to jump on. And then my mom, who was actually a medical technologist, she started to rent them in the early 60s. And it was very fairly priced. It was $50 for 24 hours, including delivery to your home. And that existed till the mid-70s, believe it or not. So when I came along, when I was like 12 years old, it was actually July 4th, 1976, a shipyard called Avondale Shipyard in New Orleans rented 100 inflatables on one day. And I'm thinking, you know, sitting in the backseat of my parents' car going across the bridge, I said, wait a minute, if this one organization rented 100 and we're in New Orleans, what about Dallas, Memphis, Houston, Atlanta, etc.? So in 8th grade in my high school career, I was an entrepreneur before the word entrepreneur was even conceived. So so the good news is I never had to ask my parents for spending money. And I didn't know. I just knew how to do one thing: is have fun and work. And I thought that was the natural thing. But I will tell you this: when I was in Denver, Colorado, which it is kind of a challenge to eat with restaurants and stuff, especially
Yes.
you can pretty much go up and it's all takeout and stuff. There was an Indian family that I'm really in a big health kick right now because I think if you don't have health, you don't have anything. So I've been
Yes.
really watching out the things I eat. And there was these two cute little kids in this Indian restaurant on a bicycle at 8 o'clock at night, bicycling in the restaurant. And while I waited, while they prepared my food, I had to go to the restroom. And it was like down a hallway and to the left and whatever. And the owner had turned off the lights to conserve energy.
Yes.
And so I'm trying to feel my way to the bathroom, and the little kid came out of nowhere and turned it on for me. And so, what did it mean? It meant he'd been spending time with his parents, learning their trade, believe it or not, at a young age. And one of my blessings in life, which I'm a very spiritual person, was when I was 12
Yeah.
years old, my parents gave me business cards that said future president.
There you
And
go.
I took that very seriously, so took it to heart. And the root of our industry is the amusement park industry, like
Yes.
trade shows, where if you can imagine where you'd go to buy a Ferris wheel or a roller coaster.
Exactly.
It's actually called IAPA, and that stands for International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions. And you can get anything there from the guy who makes the stick for a corn dog to the most elaborate three-dimensional roller coaster in the world and everything in between. And so I have attended that conference every year since I was 12, and
Yes.
I'm 57 years old. And if you do the math,
Wow.
that's 40 something years. And usually
Wow.
when I call the organization to book my thing, they say you're eligible for some like golden pin because you've attended so long. And they asked me, do you need a wheelchair or a walker? And I said, wait, I'm still good to go.
Now, Frank, you were here in Washington. There were many politicians who were fighting to provide funding for small businesses and other large size corporations to get through this particular coronavirus epidemic and to employ people for a longer period of time. Did your organization apply for those funds under the CARES Act?
So we have a lot of different entities, and I sold our nationwide um, organization, which is what's called Here Comes Fun. It's herecomesfun.com. That's the nationwide rental that we do. I actually sold that to my three children for them to run.
Yes.
Because I'm presented with some bigger opportunities. Actually, what you mentioned in New Orleans with my mayor run, and that was actually because I raised $1 billion to open up a closed down Six Flags theme park, and the Democratic regime in New Orleans wouldn't let me do it. And they said, if you want to make change, run for office. So guess what I did? I ran for
You
office,
ran for
and I actually
office.
put a top hat on of all things, just to have some fun with it, right? So, but the
Exactly.
answer is, I talked to my son, and he actually did say he in fact did, but he only did so on a temporary basis because he didn't. He's 32 years old. Okay, and he
Yes.
is scared. However, being from New Orleans, I mean, we kind of have the advantage for the rest of the United States because we went through this exact same thing when Katrina hit in
Yep.
2005. So, sadly, what happened in Katrina is, keep in mind at that time we maybe had 150 locations. It's all about the distribution chain, and
Yes.
we're providing our products. And at that time, we were pretty much manufacturing about 80% of our stuff in house to be shipped. Well, I lost everything. And not only
Yes.
did I lose that manufacturing capability, FEMA sadly started throwing money just like they're doing now at
Yeah.
people, hoping it sticks. And they were actually paying my employees more money, double the money actually, to stay home and not go to work. So I had a real problem at hand. So guess what I did?
What
I
did you do?
hopped on a plane and I flew to China. And this is kind of crazy, but China actually saved me on the short end. But
Yes.
and I've been there, 20 times over the past 10 plus years, and it's fun for a while. Yeah, I got to amazing hotels. It's part of the world, and we all should increase our knowledge by being, familiar with out there. But then if you stop for a second and say, wait a minute, look what it really takes away from America. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to get a wake-up call before this pandemic, hop on an Amtrak train and go from Chicago to New Orleans, go from LA to New Orleans, go from New Orleans to DC or wherever, and you'll see what the cities that built our country are just faltering. I mean, they were just boarded up.
Yeah.
And we had to do something long before this pandemic. I mean, it was already there. So, as much as I'd like to tell you that there's something we can do to stop this, which I can share with you this, my scientific team is on something right now significant. That's why I'm going to Germany to do testing.
Yes.
Okay? Because we went to the FDA, they didn't return our phone call. We went to the White House. There's actually a little black phone outside the White House that if you don't have an appointment, you can pick up to make an appointment. Well, we left messages, never got a call back. We actually hosted a birthday party for Melania Trump on her 50th birthday, hoping she'd show up. She didn't. I personally went to the vice president's house. You ready for this? At 2 o'clock in the morning to give him a patent application for the cure for the pandemic. And the Secret Service guard was sleeping, and I started him.
No one visits the White House. I mean, the vice president.
But no, in all seriousness, so here's where the position we're in today, right?
Yes.
I could paint some bad pictures, but I'm not going to. I'm going to look at it from the bright side.
Yes.
We ended up driving from DC to New York City. One of the last things you do before you enter over here, the tunnels, is you go through Newark, right?
Yes.
The airport was deadly still. But that wasn't the bad news. You know what the bad news was?
What's
Across the street from the Newark airport is what? The port of New Jersey.
Yes.
There wasn't a single ship in the port of New Jersey. I'm blessed that I'm staying tonight in a wonderful hotel called Inc. 48, looking at the Intrepid on the Hudson River.
Yes.
And in the past 3 days, I saw a grand total of 2 boats go by the Hudson River.
Wow.
With no commerce, no nothing. We are grounded at a halt. So, seeing I actually met with these scientists and I know what they're doing, I decided to do something I've never done before. I actually been watching the mayor of New York on TV every day, his press conference, and Trump has his. So I said, I'm going to go meet the mayor. So I found out where it was, went over there, walked by World Center. It was the first time I ever went by Ground Zero, by the way.
Yes.
Walked over there. And then there's a park right in front of City Hall. It's actually called City Hall Park. And I'm going to come back to that in a second. But I said, great, we're here. I can go talk to the mayor, or not talk with him, maybe a staff member, and say, contact this person because they're on to something, right? The key is to be able to empower them, because I know my scientists, they actually need resources. They actually need fabricators to actually make some apparatus. Well, they can't even call in vendors to fabricate things because there's a shutdown enacted by the mayor. So guess what they're so frustrated. They're the ones going to Germany, right?
Yeah.
So I find a security guard, which there's 2 levels of security surrounding the city hall. And I said, would like to just give somebody something, a patent application number. They can look up and read it and see if it has credence to it, right?
Yes.
And they said, unless you have an appointment, unless you go to a website and fill out a form or call a phone number and get through infinite loops of voicemails that never get replied to, you're out of luck. Now, and I'm like, what a shame.
Now, you're saying tonight that the scientists and medicinal technicians that you're working with actually have a cure for the onus of this pandemic, and you can't get anyone to pick up the phone and call you back? Is that what you're saying?
100%, 100% up to date. So let me lay a little foundation.
Yes, sir.
This group actually needed to have some authority, or not really authority, maybe call it a certification. So they reached out to Louisiana State University, their biophysics department, their medical department, because they're an associate of medical schools, and they actually started working with them. They saw a Fox News report of a professor that actually he believed in coming up with different technologies as well. And so they reached out to him. They had an alliance. They got a benefactor to make a donation to the university to actually get to use their resources. And actually, the theory was confirmed that it's going to work.
Wow.
And I was like, this is like good news, right? And so I'm kind of a fly on the wall on the outside trying to put this thing together and help them. And they keep getting frustrated that they can't get anything. And so they needed to make prototypes. The good news is I actually found a facility in Ohio to make it. It's under development now.
Mm-hmm.
It will actually be previewed. You ready for this?
Yes.
At 9 o'clock Wednesday morning.
9 o'clock Wednesday morning.
They're actually going to see the first prototypes. Okay. And then they have a flight reservation out of JFK at 6:50 to fly from JFK to Frankfurt, Germany via Amsterdam. These people put $1 million on the line to make it because they think it's worth it.
Wow.
All private funded, all by somebody that cares. Now, here's the really sad part. You would think that some government entity, and it doesn't even matter what side of the table you're on, that somebody would actually care. But the reality is, today, when I went to the city hall, at least the person said, I think I'm reading your heart. You really want to do good. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not wasting your time.
Yeah.
And he says, I tell you what I suggest you do. Go to the nearest hospital. So what did we do? We kept walking down the block, and we ended up at Presbyterian Hospital, about maybe 3 blocks from the governor's, or not the governor, the mayor's office.
Mayor's office.
And
yes.
Half the team I was with, because they had all the little tents outside and things like that, they wouldn't go in. I said, I volunteered to go in. So I went into the emergency room, and it was sad. Their security at the emergency room was just as tough as what you go through at an airport. I mean, they had metal screening at a hospital emergency room. I was blown away. And they had 2 security guards, armed security guards, stand there. And I said, I would like to speak to somebody who we can deliver some information about a potential cure.
Yes.
It stopped the guards in their track, just literally stopped. They didn't know what to say. And so eventually they said, why don't you do this? We'll give you the emergency room's phone number. And so they wrote it down on a slip. We walked outside. I handed it to somebody, and they called and they talked to what they call the charge nurse. And the charge nurse says, I don't know what we can do with you. Wow. And so then they said, you know what? There's a COVID hotline. Why don't you call that? And I'm like, okay. So we called the COVID hotline, and there was absolutely no message on it other than saying, please leave your name at the beep. And that was about 4 or 5 hours ago, and so be it. I guess nobody cares tonight.
Americans are watching this tonight, and a lot of people around the world are watching this tonight and saying, Frank Scurlock, this is unbelievable. In the midst of a pandemic, you have the cure for the pandemic. You've approached the governor of the mayor of New York. You've approached the vice president in the White House. You've approached others. Sadly, you didn't approach Governor Hogan because he actually brought in stuff from South Korea, and it's under guard. So what can Americans do to help you get this message out around the world?
Well, I have to laugh. That's just my nature. I'm either going to cry or I'm going to laugh. So
laugh. Exactly.
I actually said to my staff, I said, look, I really don't want to get arrested by doing something wrong at the White House. I can make a stink, right? I said, short of throwing a pebble through a window at the White House, I don't know what to do to get attention. Wow. So we even went so far as to call CNN and Fox, and even they were not responsive either. Nobody's home.
Oh my God!
This is really common.
Now, Frank, wait, you are a businessman. I'm a businessman. I would like to know if we could watch from where we are around the world on Wednesday at 9 o'clock what you're going to do in Ohio. Is there any way that we could watch that?
I would actually, I would have to verify, but I would think that'd be a strong possibility. They have nothing to hide. They just want to help. Okay.
Exactly.
And I can tell you what the reveal is supposed to be. because they were taking off and going to Frankfurt,
Yes.
they were setting up to unveil the announcement in England at Buckingham Palace on Friday.
Wow.
I know that.
Well, I want to be a first for the U.S.
Okay.
If we
Well,
can work something out, I would love to broadcast what you're going to do at 9 o'clock on Wednesday morning to the world. And I would let the world know what you're trying to do, sir.
That would be, I mean, let me actually paint the stage. And technically, the device, because I've already seen it, and I'm under NDA, so I can't.
Yes, of course, you can't.
Disclosure.
You can't talk like that.
And I will say the patent has actually been filed. I've read the patent, and I actually had something to do with the patent. So I know it very well. And I will say it actually involves technology used in the industry that I'm familiar with. So I understand the math and why it works. Being a spirituality, and by the way, thank you for doing the Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, I just went back to fifth grade.
Yes.
It was wonderful. So thanks. We believe that if there's establishment of a creator, as it is, as
Yes.
our whole government, by the way, it has to, because our currency is based on it, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's pretty simple to do the math. We're there. It's either you're in faith or you're not. Well, we're going to edge on the potential that it is of faith, and that when Adam and Eve showed up on Earth, they didn't have a bunch of ventilators around them. They certainly didn't have a bunch of EKGs and infusion pumps and stuff, but they had a lot of nature. They had a lot of trees and ponds and flowers and just good stuff, right? And so when you see this and hear about it, it's amazing how simple it is. Think about when you were a kid riding a bicycle and maybe you fell off and you scraped up your knee. What do? You clean your injury. Maybe you then get Bactine and put some sanitizer on it. Then you add maybe a Neosporin or ointment, and you put a Band-Aid on it. And at that time, it's a waiting game to healing, right?
Yes.
That is exactly what this process does. It's all natural with no drugs.
Really?
Yes, it's all natural, no drugs whatsoever. It is.
Okay. You are the enemy of Big Pharma at this point. This is freaking amazing.
Sadly, I was told that, and that's actually one of the reasons. Well, let's just say we get watched. Yes, and the thing that I actually learned, especially from the LSU people, is when they confirmed it in the theory, they said you got to understand this doesn't just cure the current pandemic; it pretty much cures every known disease to man. I'm like, well, that's pretty cool.
Wow.
So we are. That's why I got behind it, and I'm excited to be a big part of it.
Well, Frank, we're excited, and offline, if we can work out some arrangements where we can at least be able to peer in on what you're doing in Ohio on Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock, I would broadcast the daylights out of that via TECN TV.
You got it.
And I want to show the world that there is an answer for this that's not going to cost you $1 billion.
And well, let me say this. This was, I mean, it's kind of comic relief because I'm involved in all these discussions. LSU basically said we don't. They're not needed anymore because the theory's been proven. And,
wow.
and I mean, it takes the patent at the office a while for things for them to do, but the theory's already been proven. And then we went to neuroscientists. We went now. This is really crazy. I had the opportunity yesterday at 10 o'clock in the morning. Guess what I did?
What's that?
I got 3 root canals.
You are a champion. 3 root canals, and you still did the show.
Yeah, but here's the deal. So when I was on a flight, the air pressure would aggravated the pockets in my mouth where I already had some cavities, and guess what happened? It triggered a personal pandemic in my mouth, and it didn't feel very good. So I have an agent, as you may know, and my agent said, let me hook you up. And so I sat there. Now, I will admit, I've never had this done. I did the nitrous gas, so it was a lot of fun. And when
recommended highly.
Yeah, it was good. As a matter of fact, so I was talking to the dentist the whole time, and I said, just do whatever you need to do. Just keep going.
There, there you go. Listen, we have got to go on to our next segment, but I want to
Sure.
talk with you offline, and I do want to carry what you're doing Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. And we want the whole world to see that there's an opportunity for a cure to this pandemic and many others. How can people get in contact with you, Frank?
Well, my personal email address is frankscurlock@me.com. And let me give you a website that one of the things I'm a major philanthropist, and
Yes,
we
sir.
launched a few days ago a program called the GOSH Plan, and that's GOSH plan.org. And GOSH simply stands for the Global Offensive of Spreading of Happiness. It also,
Yeah.
the G could be for gorilla or it could be for God. It's up to you of that. And so we're kind of, if you would imagine, there's no organization that actually goes off of restoring fun. I live part time because do a lot of theme park work.
Yes.
I live in Orlando, and sadly, I happened to be there when the Pulse shooting occurred a few years back.
Yes.
So I wrote a script to be the first responders of fun, and we took the playbook out and we launched it on May 1st, and it's hopefully going to get funded. We're actually tomorrow. I'm going to the corporate offices of Chase in Manhattan, which is why I'm here. And I'm also working with American Express because we're looking for alliances with major people that believe in us. We are completely funded by an organization called the No Ligger Foundation. And No Ligger, you'll get a kick out of this, is just the word religion spelled backward.
Oh,
So it's No
yeah.
Ligger Foundation.org. And being a spiritual person, we definitely believe in tithing. And
Yes.
my goal is actually not to tithe 10%. I actually like to tithe the opposite, 90%. So you
Wow.
keep giving away, and guess what happens? God just keeps dumping it on you, right?
There you go.
And so it grows.
That's
That's
true.
how it works.
That's true.
That's how it works. But
Listen,
no, so
Frank.
you can do that. And you can call. My phone number is 407-973-4018. I really can't take calls because of the volume, but you
Exactly.
can welcome anybody to send me a text if they have any input or suggestions. We will continue marching forward because we believe it. We believe in it. And I also say this in closing: is that walking around Manhattan, Times Square, people are out. Just the news are not reporting it. I mean,
Yes.
business are in. It's indicative when you hear a development team want to hire a fabricator to buy something or to build something or to go to a hardware store, and they're not allowed. So Trump nailed it. Don't
Yeah.
let the cure be worse than the problem.
Exactly. Frank Scurlock, God bless you, sir. Thank you so much for all you're doing. I want to talk with you tomorrow. We're going to try to get that
Yep.
thing broadcast at 9 a.m. on Wednesday morning for the world to see. There is a natural answer that Big Pharma doesn't have. Thank God for you, sir.
I appreciate it. We do it from the heart. That's the only thing that really matters.
God bless you. The Gosh Plan, ladies and gentlemen, goshplan.org. You can find Frank Scurlock on Facebook. You can also find him, not that guy, that guy. There you go. You can find Frank Scurlock, who is a former Democrat New Orleans mayoral candidate out of Louisiana. You can find him at Twitter at Frank Scurlock. God bless you all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for staying tuned to us. We will be back with more of the best in urban conservative talk right after these messages.